If you're a police chief, if you review police policies, or if you're impacted by potential policy changes in a police department, this week's video is for you. I'm going to discuss what I consider to be guiding principles for evaluating use of force policies generally, and then I'm going to analyze these guiding principles to discuss the latest revisions to Phoenix's use of force policy. This week's video represents my own opinions, not necessarily the opinions of any groups that I regularly represent. First, 3 guiding principles. The first of which is the policy should be consistent with case law. The second is that the policy should avoid unnecessary or contradictory terms. And third is that policy should be written so that a reasonable law enforcement officer can understand what actions would or would not violate policy. For factor 1, being consistent with case law, the reason this is important is because courts are regularly called upon to determine if uses of force violate Graham versus Connor. This means there are numerous examples of uses of force that have been subject to judicial review. So, having a policy match legal expectations makes it easy to determine if what an officer did was justified, and it gives the department a factual basis for policy terms instead of setting standards out of thin air. The second principle, that the policy should avoid unnecessary or contradictory terms, is also important. Officers have a right and responsibility to come home safely. So, when faced with a threat, the U.S. Supreme Court says that the officer can use force that is objectively reasonable. Sounds pretty clear to me. And a solid use of force policy should focus on what is objectively reasonable and avoid other language that could muddy the waters. This ties into the third principle that I propose. A policy should be written so that a reasonable law enforcement officer can understand what would or would not violate policy. Again, the touchstone here is being clear and objective. A use of force review committee should be able to read the policy and case law, and when they evaluate the actions of an officer, they should be able to come to a consensus in most cases as to whether the actions of the officer was in or out of policy. I've thought about these principles quite a bit lately, and Phoenix is making revisions to their use of force policy that I oppose. Every revision to the policy should be consistent with the factors I outlined a few moments ago, and I'd encourage everyone to offer feedback with those factors in mind. Phoenix's current policy is consistent with the law, and the changes I see, including add-in language that uses of force need to be objectively proportional, make me extremely concerned. If you're offering feedback on Phoenix's use of force policy, or if your agency is considering modifying their use of force policy, keep these factors in mind when offering comments. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Be on the lookout for new videos. They come out every Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Arizona time. I'm Steve Cerbalic. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.